Hello and welcome to the series About Rugby League show. This is episode 4 of the show and we're building nicely. So guys, if I can ask you just to like this video and subscribe to the channel, that would be much appreciated. I'm Will Jackson, joined by Sam Brockson and Sam Cook of Series About Rugby League. And we've got Pete Smith as well from the Yorkshire Evening Post. That's it for the regular season now. That's over and done with. We probably won't spend too much time talking about it, given Friday was 3 days ago now, and that's at the time of recording. So, but we now know that Hull KR are the League Lead Shield, the League Leaders Shield winners.
League title winners,
Well, we'll get to that. We now know that Wakefield will be playing in the playoffs. We know that. We know what the playoffs look like. So we've got Lee Leopards versus Wakefield Trinity on Friday. We've got Leeds Rhinos versus St Helens on Saturday. But before we get to that, Pete, give us your rundown of Wigan versus Leeds on last Friday night.
Well, about 5 minutes after the game had finished, I couldn't remember anything about it, and I think that more or less says everything. It was just a case of fulfilling the fixture, I think, for both parties. Leeds had left a few out with minor injuries. They'll all be back this week. Leeds could be near to full strength. Excuse me. Apart from Cameron Smith, who's missed a lot of the season, and Mike Acevo, who hasn't played at all. Everybody else is going to be available. Leeds had nothing really to play for. Neither did Wigan. Wigan had named their just about the strongest squad. I think that was probably as a precaution because they didn't know for sure what was going to happen the night before when Hull KR played Warrington. I think maybe if they'd had an extra 24 hours to name the squad, they might have rested a few as well. But there was nothing at stake, and it looked like that from the start. Wigan wasted their captain's challenge after 3 minutes, which I think tells you something about the game. They challenged a knock-on ruling and lost their challenge, and I don't think they'd have done that if there was anything really at stake. They played pretty well. Brevin French was the difference. He's clearly, when he's playing and he's on form, he's the best player in the competition. I think the only reason he's not been talked about for Man of Steel this year is because he's missed a fair bit of the season through injury. Wigan look very sharp, much better than the last time I saw them live. But Leeds will take some things from it. I think they showed commendable spirit. They battled to the end. They scored the last try and avoided a nilling. They didn't offer a great deal on attack without Lucky Miller and Jake Connor, which is a concern. But the defence was pretty good for the most part. They conceded 4 tries, but they were in 2 5-minute spells. Other than that, there wasn't an awful lot in it. But it's not a game that will live long in the memory, and it's not going to count for an awful lot in the next couple of weeks, I don't think.
Yeah, Samby, you watched that for us, that game. Are Wigan now looking like the team to avoid in these playoffs now?
Yeah, I think so. Like Pete said, Bevan French was the difference, and he is the best player in the league. He's just got that ability to just change a game at the flick of a switch. I think it epitomised that when he put in a relatively poor kick and James Bentley broke away, and he managed to catch up with Bentley and then rip the ball off him to give Wigan possession back. But yeah, I think Wigan are the team to avoid. Hull KR, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a little bit, are beatable, as we've seen in the last 5 weeks or so. They've not been at their best. Wigan look like they're peaking at the right time. And I think, Fat Pete's side are the one to avoid in these playoffs.
Yeah, Hull KR won the league, as we know. Second trophy of the year after the Challenge Cup. They're chasing a historic treble, but they were far from convincing against Warrington. I was there. Their attack wasn't really firing. Mikey Lewis wasn't himself. He seemed hesitant to pass the ball. And then defensively, they went to bits at times. That Adam Holroyd try was really poor for them to concede against a team that really didn't have anything to play for at all. That try stuck in the teeth of Willie Peters. But after the game, Peter was fairly strong on his opinion that the recent performances don't really matter going into the playoffs, and his team will rise to the occasion. Sam, are you concerned about Sam C? Are you concerned about performances at the minute at Craven Park?
I think you have to be. I think if you ask Willie Peters, would you rather be going into the playoffs with the form that his side's in, or the form that Wigan are in? Then it's a no-brainer. He'd obviously choose the form that Wigan are in. But I do think that one of the things that generally he's very strong on is that he'll always take performance over result to an extent. Like, as long as the performance is the right one. And I think he's kind of reiterated it now. It's this time of the season where performance doesn't really matter. I think he'll take 2 more wins just like that. He doesn't really care what the performance is like. And I think that's probably the mentality you have to take in playoff rugby. And that's probably the only thing that Hull KR can take solace from. They've still got the win. They've not obviously won all of the games of late, but that was a real banana skin that they could have had. And yeah, they made the banana skin for themselves, but they still managed to do it. So I think there probably is some confidence you can take from it, but I don't think you take in the confidence that other teams are, because you've not done it for. I'm not sure when you can say their last sort of 10 out of 10 performance was. It feels like it's been a long time, and obviously you're not going to be playing these teams like Warrington in the playoffs. They're going to be playing. We'd probably expect it'll be Leeds, but again, it's going to be a team that it's either Leeds, Wakefield, or Saints. Saints have pushed them fairly close, but I think they'd love to play Saints. I think that's the easiest of the 3 for them. But Wakefield have battered them, and then Leeds have beaten them twice as well, and arguably could have won the 3rd game. So I think there is real cause for concern, but the fact that they've managed to get over with. And you've got to kind of remember, they've had this almost like monkey on the back for about a month of, when you're going to win the League Leaders Shield, when you're going to win the League Leaders Shield. And that probably, ideally, they'd have got that out of the way, and it's kind of just lingered. Now that that's done, they've got, I think, 16 days is the layoff that they've got. They're going to be firing into the playoffs, and I think you can take some confidence from that, but I think there's still a lot of question marks there.
Yeah, KR and Wigan have both earned themselves a week off for finishing in the top 2, but let's just look ahead to this eliminator round then. So first off, Lee Wakefield. I actually think this is going to be a really tight one. I think they've both beaten each other this season. I think Wakefield have shown that they can beat anyone on the day. I think they have beaten Rovers, Wigan, Leeds. They've beaten the top 4 this year. Pete, how do you see it going?
A tough one to call, but Wakefield had a big win at Lee earlier in the season. Lee have won at Wakefield. In the playoffs, it ought to be the home team, really, because they're the team that's higher on the table and they've got home advantage, but it doesn't always work like that. And I think Wakefield will go in quietly confident. There's no pressure on them. They've had a successful season just getting into the top 6. I think all the pressure's on Lee. It could go down to come down to a mistake or one incident. I think it's going to be a really close game. I'd maybe tip Lee just because they're at home and they are in good form, and they've maybe some of them have got more experience of big games like that. But really, it is a tough one to call. I genuinely could make a case for both teams, wouldn't you?
Yeah, lads. Would Lee be kicking themselves then after the season they've had if they fell at the first hurdle?
Yeah, I think definitely. But I also think you look at the way they've progressed, built year on year. Hull KR have done exactly the same, and Lee are doing that as well. And then doing it as well, with Gaz O'Brien in the halves. And that's not a slight on Gaz O'Brien, but he clearly, given that Matt Moylan was late retirement last year, he clearly wasn't their preferred half, but it's worked and they've got through it. And they've not just got through it, they've been one of the best teams. I think at their best, they're better than they're definitely better than Wakefield when they're at their best, but they don't always show it. The consistency gap from Lee's best to worst is probably bigger than most of the other playoff teams. But I think at home, with Lachlan Lamb, Gaz O'Brien, I think the pack is more or less full strength as well now. I think they've definitely got enough, and I do think, like I say, if they do get knocked out first round, the thing they'll be gutted about is that they sacrificed home advantage, because that is a bit of a, it's not quite Craven Park, but I think it is becoming a bit of a fortress for them there. And I think they've got the best opportunity, obviously, and they'd love to go to Wigan as well. They've beaten Wigan this year as well. I think they'll see it as a real opportunity. I think they won't be scared of going to Wigan at all. So I think, obviously, yeah, if they crash out, they'll be gutted. But I think they're going to be viewing this just as a massive opportunity rather than anything to fear.
Yeah, let's have some predictions then. I'll go Lee by 10.
Yeah, I think I'll go Lee by 4. I think a bit closer, maybe.
I'll switch it up. I'll go Wakefield by 4. I think they've got enough to beat them.
And having just said that Lee will win, I'm going to go for Wakefield as well, narrowly, by a Mason Lino drop goal in the 78th minute.
That one of Mason Lino, if he's on form, then Wakefield are fully in it. Like Mason Lino, when he's been on form this season, has been unbelievable. And there was, again, loads of questions about him. I think he's had a really, really good season, and I think that's probably testament to Darryl Powell's coaching as well.
Yeah, and Jake Truman got, I think, 4 assists the other night as well. So I mean, if they're firing, then Lee might have something to think about. Leeds St Helens. Look, Saints have had the wood over Leeds in recent months. Won the last 2. Personally, I just can't see them getting over the line against Leeds. But I don't know, Pete. How do you see it?
Well, you said recent months. It's not. It's like, I think I mentioned this the other week. It's since 2018. St Helens certainly haven't lost to Leeds at Headingley since 2017. They've won 3 of the 4 this season. They'll go into it fully confident that they can win this game. They know how to stop Leeds playing. Everything Leeds do well, they don't do when they play against St Helens. Having said that, it's a bit different, isn't it, in the playoffs? And if you're ever going to sort of end a run like that, now's the time to do it. Leeds have waited a long, long time since 2017 for a home playoff, and I think Leeds are bang up for it. Speaking to Brad Arthur after the game on Friday, he's really up for these playoffs. Leeds will have Lucky Miller and Jake Connor back, probably Ash Hanley as well, and Ryan Hall. I think the fact they're going in on the back of a couple of defeats is a concern, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if Saints won, but I think now is the time for Leeds to end this bad run against them. So I'd predict a Leeds win by a couple of scores.
I think the fact that it's at home, then, I think that's a massive difference. That crowd getting up and the band there and everything else.
Well, it should be, but Saints enjoy playing at Headingley. That's one of the problems that Leeds have. I think is everybody likes playing at Headingley. And as I say, Saints have forgotten how to lose there, but it should swing it Leeds' way. It's just it. I say it's just, based on the two teams. If it was a team other than St Helens against Leeds that was in the same form, then I'd say, well, I think Leeds will do it fairly comfortably. But Saints know what to do to beat Leeds, and having done it 3 out of the 4 times they've met this season, they're going to be confident. But I think if Leeds can get off to a decent start like they did in the game they won at Magic Weekend, and they really took the game to Saints for the first quarter and were utterly dominant, I think if they do that and score first, then they'll be fine. I don't think Leeds have lost a game when they've scored first this season, so a big start from them is important. I think the longer it goes on and Saints are level or in front, the more they'll grow in confidence and belief, and it might take a little bit out of Leeds.
Yeah, Sam, how do you see Saints at the minute? I mean, the spine situation is still a bit of a mess. Defensively, Standers slipped against Castleford, and I think even though they won that game, I think the manner of the victory, I think the confidence might take even more of a knock going into this. really struggled lately. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think the one thing you can say about the defence aspect against Cass is that they've rested a lot of big players, and a lot of those big players have come in, and players like Morgan knows they don't have those standards. Their standards are going to rise massively for the introduction of Knowles, Clark, Lees. There's plenty more as well, but the spine still is a major issue. I actually thought that Friday was a game where Paul Wellens could have really experimented. They couldn't finish any higher than fifth, couldn't finish any lower. They're playing a team that I think at the time were 11th in the table and have since finished 11th. I think that was the game where you could have tested something different with that spine. And because, again, I just don't see the point in playing Jack Wellsby in the halves. I think maybe not this season because of injury and just form. But I do think he is a top 3 fullback in Super League. And I think just shoehorning him into the halves is a complete waste. And I think I'd like to see Tristan Saylor at hooker. I think it's maybe a bit different, but I think that is an option. Obviously, then also you've still got the issue of a kicking game, which means you probably have to play him by. But then you consider they've got Whitby running the show in the Championship for Halifax. And granted, that is a different level, but they threw him in against Wigan, so he maybe doesn't come into consideration. But Paul Wellens will probably be thinking, back of his mind, is it something he does look at? Because you've got to consider all options. I think to beat Leeds, you've got to be like Pete says. I think the longer it goes, the better chance Saints have got. So you've got to stay defensively sound all game, but that also comes off the back of having a kicking game. Really, you need to be able to get your lines cleared and get some territory, and they're not going to win the territory battle if it's Jack Wellsby and Johnny Lomax in the halves because their kicking game's not there. So I think you've got to play in by or Whitby in the halves. But then once you start moving all those pieces about, you're detracting from elsewhere. I think there's real issues. And I think regardless of, I think they're going to lose, but regardless of whether they win or lose, the same questions will get either asked next week or next season. And I think it's a really big off-season in terms of what do they actually do. They still don't have Paul Wellens' contract for next year. That's another thing that is in contention. Like, what are you doing there? It just all seems, for a club that's been so well run and well organised, what has gone wrong? I don't know. It's the recruitment, the planning. It all just seems off at the moment at Saints, and I think that obviously impacts on the field. I think the players can see that, and that's probably why they're having these issues.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Famous last words, but I'd be surprised if Paul Wellens isn't there next season. The way he's talking at the minute, talking about recruitment and whatever else, he's talking like a man that is probably going to be there next season.
Yeah, I agree as well, but I don't understand why the club can't then come out and say, right, that's it. Like you're breeding speculation, and which breeds uncertainty, which again leads to fans questioning things. It's such an easy thing to come out and lay the market down. Because again, if they were to change him now, there's no real options on the market. So everyone kind of knows it, but by not saying it, you just kind of lead to that little bit of doubt, which just doesn't help at all. I don't understand why a decision hasn't been publicly announced anyway.
No, I think you're 100% right, actually. Just on to predictions, then I'll go. If Jake Connor's firing on all cylinders, if he's fit and ready to go, I'll go Leeds Rhinos by 12, lads.
Yeah, I'm on a similar vein. I'll go Leeds by 10.
Yeah,
I've already said.
Sorry, but you go.
I've already said I think Leeds by a couple of scores, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if it was the other way around, just based on what's happened in the past.
I've just hammered St Helens, so I think I'm probably going to have to go Leeds by about 3 scores, based on what I've just said about Saints. So watch Saints upset the apple cart and make us all wrong.
Yeah, I do think it'll be low scoring, whatever happens, to be honest with you. The Dream Team was announced yesterday. There's 8 debutants in it, 4 Hull KR players. So we've got Jez Litton, Mikey Lewis, Dean Hadley, Petter Hiku. Jake Connor and James McDonnell are in from Leeds. You've got Jay Field and Liam Marshall from Wigan. Hull had 2, even though they missed out in the playoffs. So Lewis Martin, top try scorer in Super League, and Herman SCSA. Then there's Emila Hanley, Morgan Knowles, and Mike McMeekin from Wakefield. I suppose a big surprise for me was no Lachlan Lamb, 41 try assists all season. I think that's a massive oversight. And I know that he's been playing 7, the same as Jake Connor, but I don't think it really matters in situations like these. Can anyone feel hard done by to miss out, Pete?
Lamb will, as you mentioned, and Lockie Miller, the Leeds fullback. I think he is unfortunate not to be in there as well. But having said that, obviously he's up against Field, who's had a terrific season. Lamb, he could have been in there, couldn't he? He couldn't have argued too much if he'd been in there ahead of either Mikey Lewis or Jake Connor. I in my dream team, we all picked a dream team last week. I picked Mikey Lewis and Connor as the halves, but you'd have no quibble if Lamb was in there as well. They've probably been pretty much on a par. I think Connor's been the better of the three this season. Personally, I'd have said he had to be in there, and then it'd be a choice between Lewis and Lamb. But I can understand why League fans would feel Lamb had been hard done by. It's good that we've got that sort of competition in the competition, isn't it?
Yeah, Sam C, you had Tom Davies in your dream team, I think, didn't you? Were you surprised not to see him?
Yeah, I think I'd have had him over Liam Marshall, but I'm actually just looking at the stats now. I was going to make a big argument against Liam Marshall, but they are quite similar. And I think the thing that Marshall has is assists. Davies is like, but I think because obviously I think Jake Waddle's a big try scoring centre, but they're very comparable meters wise. But I think what Tom Davies brings to Hull KR is just so significant in terms of what he brings. Like the carries out of backfield is absolutely massive. His handling is generally one of the better wingers for handling, and I think off the back of just joining the season, I think the impact he's had's been massive. I think he's unlucky, and I think again the bigger question for Tom Davies now is if he makes the Ashes squad. I think he probably has to, but whether he starts or not is another question. But I think outside of that, in this dream team, I had Tessinu, but I think Emila Hanley and Peter Hickey are fine picks. I don't really have an issue there. And then I think there's not really many other complaints. I think there's a lot of League players that are unlucky. I think Trout, Isaac Lou. But Isaac Lou is up against Morgan Knowles, who's been probably one of the best players in the competition. So I think there isn't that many absolute shockers, really. I think some years you've had it where you think what has been picked there, but I don't think it's that outrageous this year.
Yeah, Sam B, you've seen a lot of Leeds Rhinos obviously this season. How pleased are you to see James McDonnell recognised?
Yeah, I'm pleased for him. I did question it a little bit just because I do think Callum Watkins had a better season than him. I think that's fair to say. I think McDonnell in defence is brilliant. I just think his attack needs a bit more work. We saw it on Friday night. I think a couple of drop balls in good field position. But yeah, I think obviously, Sean Wayne rates him because he's in the provisional England squad this year. But yeah, I think both Jake Connor and James McDonnell have had very good years for Leeds. Yeah, I just think Watkins probably would have been the better choice. I know he's played a lot of loose forward this year, and that might be a reason. But yeah, I'm pleased for both players.
Yeah, Pete and I are heading down to the Dream Team launch and playoff launch today. Actually, it's a media event. Pete, who are you talking to today?
Well, it won't surprise you to know that the Leeds players and Mike McMeekin from Wakefield, who I think's had a really good year, and I was pleased to see that he's in there. One player who and a left field pick that I put in my dream team, and someone that no one else would be talking about. I think Alex Mellor has had a really big year for Castleford. Second from bottom in the table. I just think he's worth a mention. consistently good in a poor team, and he was one of my second row picks. I just think he deserves an honourable mention. I don't think there was ever any realistic chance of him getting in the dream team, playing for a really poor Castleford side. But I hope that he can maintain that form for Cass next season when they should be a lot better. And I think he might be in with a realistic shout next year if he does.
Yeah, just as a second to last sort of topic of conversation, I just wanted to ask you all really, who's been your coach of the year? Obviously, Willie Peters has done a fantastic job at Rovers. John Cartwright's completely turned Hull FC around from being bottom of the league club to playoff contenders. Darryl Powell obviously has done a fantastic job getting Wakefield to the playoffs. Personally, I'd go Paul Rowley. I just think in terms of his mental fortitude of getting up in the morning and going to work and grinding out this full season and somehow picking up 3 wins when such uncertainty there and what's gone on. I think he gets my vote, but just wanted to ask you a lot.
I think I'd probably choose John Cartwright. I think obviously Wakefield snuck the playoffs rather than Hull, but I think the difference is Darryl Powell had, albeit a championship team, a successful team, so the culture was kind of bedded in. So to see them kind of carry over simply the belief that they can win wasn't necessarily a surprise. But I think with Hull, he's entered a team there that were absolutely hopeless last year. I mean, if you consider that they got 3 wins last year, Salford got 3 this year, and I think that says a lot. And I know there's been a lot of signings, but far from the finished product, and for him to get them to where they were on the cusp, and realistically, it's 2 I think it's 2 defeats to Huddersfield really that cost them. You look there was one at the Magic Weekend, which was Huddersfield's first win of the season, and that's really you look back and you think that's what's cost them the playoffs. And I think that would have rubber stamped it. But still, for me, I think it's probably John Cartwright because the way he's transformed that team is incredible. But obviously, like you say, Paul Rowley is. I think Paul Rowley's in a similar, well, albeit far more extreme, similar vein to Mike Eccles last year. He got a nomination, rightly so, for the situation they were dealing with. The Salford situation has just been to the nth degree this year of what it was. So I think he definitely deserves a shout, but I'd probably be going Cartwright.
Pete, I can take a guess where you're going for this.
Well, yeah, for the same reasons that Sam's mentioned, John Cartwright, I think obviously the Brad Arthur should be in with a shout there. But it depends how do you measure Coach of the Year? Is it winning stuff? In which case, then it has to be Willie Peters, doesn't it? Especially as the awards announced before the grand final. If it's improving players and teams, then Cartwright and Brad Arthur have had a similar impact. I think experienced Aussie coaches who've come in and adapted well to the competition and have really improved everything about the team that they're in charge of. And if it's just for just sheer bloody mindedness and determination and hanging in there and grit and everything else that rugby league's about, then Paul Rowley, I think would be a very popular choice. If I had to vote, I'd probably vote for Paul Rowley. Just stick it to the man sort of thing. He's I just think the way he's held everything together this year in appalling circumstances has been a credit to him really. But are you going to give Coach of the Year to someone whose team's won, what was it, 3 matches? Realistically, I don't think that'll happen. It tends to go to the obvious choice. So I imagine it'll probably be Willie Peters, but he's improved his team by 1 place, hasn't he? So it's just it's different opinions on how you measure that sort of thing. But you could make a case for probably those 4 that I've mentioned.
Sam, do you agree with that?
I think Powell. I know Sam mentioned they had probably the better squad than Hull FC, but I think to bring them up to Super League and then get playoffs at the first time of asking, has been a huge feat. I know Lee are the only other team to do it 2 years ago, and it is a big challenge. They've brought in Mike McMeekan, they've brought in Tom Johnston, who seems to be back to near his best. I know he's had a couple of injuries this year, and yeah, I think to get the playoffs and they've had them big wins over Wigan, Leeds, Hull KR. I don't think they've beaten St Helens this year. But yeah, they're in with a shout in the playoffs, and I think they are real underdogs and can throw an upset.
Yeah,
I think all as well. Like the way they play is so good to watch. They are quite similar to the Salford that we're used to, and I think that does deserve. When you look at some teams, Hull KR to an extent, like don't play. It's a defensively focused game, but Wakefield are happy to play with the ball, and it's really good to watch their games. And I think that's just again what Pete was mentioning. How do you judge coach of the year? It is hard, but if there was a metric for how good a team is to watch, then I think Wakefield will be right up there.
Yeah, just a quick bit of instant reaction as well. While we've been recording, London Broncos have announced that Jason Demetriou is going to be their head coach next season. I mean, that's a massive sign of intent, isn't it?
I think they'd kind of teased it, hadn't they? They'd said it was a pre-commitment, I think was the previous explanation. But obviously now they've formally got him. And I think previously it said that they were going to have him regardless of whether it was Championship or Super League. But it makes you wonder what's coming when this IMG and the 13th, 14th teams are selected. But I wonder what Mike Eccles' role is going to be, because I'd like to see him still involved at London. I think he deserves something there, but I think it is a massive statement of intent from London. They are really serious. It's just now whether the signings come as well, because that squad is a squad that's just finished 10th in the Championship. So you can't just put that squad in Super League. So there's got to be massive change along to follow the coach. But I think in terms of the coaching, Pete's just mentioned you've got two coaches who've come over from Australia and they made a big difference. There's that hopefully will be the same for London, and we'll get a strong London finally.
Yeah, that's a massive coup as well. I mean, I think he's a current PNG head coach. He's obviously coached in the NRL recently. He's been linked with jobs there very recently. Pete, do you rate that appointment?
I think he's an excellent appointment. Yeah, experienced, knows the British game. He obviously played here for a long time mainly with Wakefield, and he's coached here outside the top flight with Keithley Cougars when he did a really good job and sort of marked himself out as a coach to watch in the worldwide game. Really, he's a good bloke. He's got solid, experienced people behind him in Gary Hetherington, who's in charge of the club at the moment. There's finance coming in to London. I think there'll be announcements coming about sponsors and some quite high profile backers for the club. Obviously, everyone seems to think that it's already done and dusted, and they'll be in Super League next year. I hope they are, because I think Super League needs a London presence. But I think Jason Demetriou is capable of getting the best out of them, whether he's coaching in the top flight or the second tier. And like you say, it's a statement of intent. It's an eye-catching signing. It'll boost their chances of bringing some decent NRL or Aussie-based players over. And I think if you're a London fan, it's a time to start getting a bit excited.
Yeah, we'll find out whether they're in the Super League next month. There's a announcement due then once the decision's been made. But I think for now that will do us. Pete and I have got to go and prepare for this media event this afternoon. As I said before, we'll have plenty of content from that media event and throughout the week as we build up to the playoffs. So if I can just prompt you all again to like this video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be much appreciated. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Please like and share, and we'll see you next week.